Welcome to LiveDaf, your online Daf Yomi Shir.
Shalom Aleichem and welcome back to today's Daf Hayomi, Horayos Daf Vav. We begin on Hayom and Beis, 3 lines off the bottom. Okay, so let's just pick up where we left off. Yesterday we learned that the Par He'elam Davar Shal Tzibur, so that's the carbon that would be brought when Klal Yisrael, as a nation, mistakenly committed a transgression due to a mistaken verdict issued by the Bezdin Hagadol, Yerushalayim, who permitted, for instance, chelev to be eaten, dam to be eaten. Now the question is, who brings the carbon? According to Rabbi Yehuda, the public brings it. According to Rabbi Shimon, the public and the Bezdin. According to Rabbi Meir, only the Bezdin. Here comes a kasha on Rabbi Meir, who says the Bezdin is the one that offers the carbon. Tanya, Rabbi Shimon Omer, Ma Talmud Loimar. So we have the pasuk where the Leviim were inaugurated, were introduced to the Avodah, were sanctified for the avodah of the Mishkan. So there was some karbanas brought on that occasion. So what does the pasuk mean when it says par sheni ben boker tikach lechatos? So there was one cow brought as an oila, another one brought as a chatos. Now it's self-understood that if it's the second one, then it's number 2. Why mention number 2? Par sheni ben boker tikach lechatos. If it's to teach how many? Shem Shnayim. That's obvious. It already says that there's one par for the Oila and one for the Chatas. And obviously, 1 plus 1 equals 2. So what's the purpose of mentioning number 2? The point is that the pasuk is preempting something that we would think, just like a regular chatas is meant to be offered to the Levim, to the Kehanim to eat. Right? So a typical chatas is consumed by Kehanim. Perhaps this chatas as well. It follows the same, system. Tamalemar. And that's why the pasuk says, Upar Sheni. The second one is the chatas. Second to what? Second to the first. What's the first? The oila. To connect, to compare the two. Sheni lo'ila. And to teach us, ma'ila lo'ina echeles. Just like the first one, the oila is not consumed by the kehanim, rather it's completely burnt on the mizbeach. Av chatas lo'ina echeles, likewise. This special chatas, brought on this unique occasion, will not be consumed by the kehanim. Kayetzebai, in similar fashion, Omar B'yesi taught as well. There was another time in history when the carbon chatas was not meant to be eaten by Kehanim. This took place when our nation returned from exile from Babel with Ezra, and they brought many karbanas on that occasion. And we're going to see in a minute. It was meant for kapara of worshipping idols way back at the end of the first Beis Hamikdash, and there were many members that were still recalling. Many people that were standing there at the time, after they returned back to Yerushalayim, who had experienced the first Beis Hamikdash and had succumbed to idol worship, and they were very remorseful, as we're going to see later. And they brought a huge amount of karbanos. Haboim, Mishvi, Hagoyla, those who returned from the Golus, Hikrivu, Oilois, Lilike Israel, Parim Shnei Masa. They brought a total of 12 parim, and the pasuk actually continues to describe many more until we have Sfirei Chatas Shnei Masa, 12 karbanos chatas. And the pasuk concludes with Hakoil Oila. Everything is an Oila. Asks the Gemara the obvious question. We just mentioned chatas. How could you call them Ola Oila? Hakoil Oila Sakadaita. How could you say it's Ola Oila? Efshar Chatas. How can a chatas be an Oila? Ella Hakol Oila. Rather, the point is, all those karban, even the chatois within this package, were deemed to a certain extent like an oila. to the point that it's not going to be eaten by the kohanim. It was fully consumed on the mizbeach. Rashi explains because this was a carbon for avodah zarah, which has that halacha. How can you say it's all oila? Rather, all has a status like an oila. Ma oila lenechelas, avchatz lenechelas. Like you don't need an oila, you don't need eat this chatas as well. The sanya, as we learned, that these were chatos brought to atone for avodah zarah. They brought to atone for avodah zarah. Which avodah zarah? When was this sin committed? V'amar Yehuda, Amar Shmuel. From way back, that they committed Tzidkiyahu in the time of Tzidkiyahu HaMelech at the end of Churban Bayis, at the end of Bayis Rish. End of story. Now, why 12? How do you get to a total of 12 karbanos? Now, this was a communal sin, communal transgression, which would, in a way, trigger a similar, system, a similar result to the Par Helam Davar that we're learning in our Masechta. It wasn't exactly, but it was a similar idea that it was a national event, a national, obligation to atone for a sin. So Bishleim el Rabbi Yehuda Mishkachas Lo. So according to Rabbi Yehuda, who says the public brings the chatos, so every shevet brings its own par, right? When it comes to the standard Par Helam Davar Shal Tzibur. So likewise over here, it makes sense that they brought 12. Why do we get 12? We're speaking that 12 tribes sinned. The that explains why they bring 12 goats. 12 seirim, because this is avodah zarah, which requires seirim. Inami, alternatively, you could have a case, the chatosh shiva shvatim, only 7 shvatim sinned. So it's most of Klal Yisrael, but it still necessitates 12, because Ush'ara, Inach, Begreir, because the other shvatim get drawn along. As we learned the other day, they're all meant to participate. Hence, the number 12. Reb Shimon Nami, likewise, according to Reb Shimon, who says the shvatim bring and the bezdin. How do you get to the number 12? You go in the Chato Asar Achad Asar Shvatim. You have 11 shvatim who sinned. The Ma'aser Achad Asar Seirim, which requires 11 karbanos, plus 1 for the bezdin. V'idach, the bezdin. So Reb Yehuda, Reb Shimon, they're covered. Elul Reb Meir. The question is, according to Reb Meir, how do you get to number 12? It should be just 1 for the bezdin. The Amar bezdin Mevin Tzibur, he says the bezdin brings not the tzibur. So, how do you get to 12? The answer is like this. What happened was, the public sinned and sinned and sinned, until 12 times over and over again, and for each event, for each sin, it required a separate carbon on account of the leadership of the bezdin. Okay, so pretty much sums up that discussion. But now let's delve a bit deeper into this historical event. How could they bring a carbon chatas if the actual sinners, sort of the owners of that sin, are no longer alive? We know that, at least by a private individual, if he sets aside a carbon or he sins and hadn't yet, you can't bring a carbon on his behalf. The Gemara is assuming that the original generation who sinned were no longer around. Maisi means Misa, they died. Maisilu Hanu Dechad, those who sinned had already passed away. Amra Papa. When do we say that a chatos whose owner passed away, that chatos b'misa can't be brought as a carbon, it's left to die? This is learned from Halacha L'Meshim Sinai, as we're going to see on the Amud Beis of our daf. That's specific to a private person. When he dies, you can't, process the carbon. As opposed to the public, a tzibur. They're different. The concept of death doesn't apply to a tzibur. The public lives on. Klal Yisrael is eternal. Right? So, even if they actually died, those people died, but the public as a whole is still around, alive and well, and they can bring the carbon. Where did Rav Papa get this concept? To learn that there's no concept of Misa B'tzibur. That the din of Misa, which means to say that the carbon chatas which is typically put to death when the owner dies. The din misa on the carbon doesn't apply by tzibur. Manale l'Rav Papa. Where do you get it from? Is it from the pasuk in Tehillim? The children sort of take the place of the parents. So it all just, it's one continuum. If that's the case, then why limit this concept to the tzibur at large? Even a private person, right? We should say that the kids take over and they can bring the carbon chatos. And we know it's not so, right? We know that a chatos shemesu ba'alea, whose owner passed away, that chatos cannot be processed. Rather, Rav Papa drew his concept from a carbon that we bring every Rosh Chodesh, a soyer chatos brought in the Beis Hamikdash on Rosh Chodesh. Damar Achmana, the Torah tells us who sponsors it. Maisi mitrumas halishka. It's sponsored with the money of the Trumas Halishka, the Beis Hamikdash. What do you mean? That money was collected half a year ago. From then till now, plenty of people have passed away. So the de facto owners of these kabbanas are no longer here. Those of some members certainly had passed away. And those remaining members, how can they bring a carbon which is partially owned by those who had passed away? This comes and teaches us that in fact, if it's b'tzibur, if it's a public chatos, karva can still be processed. Well, how do you compare the two stories? Mi dami, soy reish chodesh. How can you compare the two karbanim? Soy reish chodesh, do molay ma'asim mitzibur. In terms of the monthly carbon, maybe they didn't die. You don't know for a fact, and even if some die, but the majority is still alive and well, and that determines the status of this carbon. But here, the people that were there during the time of Tzidkiyahu certainly were no longer around. Rather, a papa came from a different pasuk. We have a pasuk by the Egla Rufa, where they discovered a victim on the road. They bring a special a calf, etc. And the pasuk says, "Karper la'amcha Yisrael." So the Kohanim call out to Hashem, "Hashem, please atone for your nation." Asher prodisa Hashem, those who you redeemed. Redeemed when? Back when in Mitzrayim. Those of us who left Mitzrayim will be, addressed by this carbonus, by this ru'yu kaparazu. It's appropriate that this atonement should Mitzrayim should address and cleanse even those who left Mitzrayim. Hold it. Those who left Mitzrayim are no longer around. How could they receive atonement from today's process? This reference, Asher Padisa, indicates that in fact, we're talking about Yotzei Mitzrayim, Asher Pradisa, right? And they're getting a parah today. Apparently, there's no concept of Misa by the Tzibur. Midami, once again, how can you compare this to the Sar Rosh Chodesh? Hasam Kulu Aisinu. In the case of the Egla Rufa, all are present. Because, primarily the Egla Rufa is coming to atone for those that are here. And everybody's alive and well. Now, once you have, the primary beneficiaries awaiting kapara, right? So then, the Yotzei Mitzrayim sort of, they piggyback on today's population. Migu, right? Since the Mechaper Achaim, the carbon the Egla Rufa can atone for those who are living now, because they're all here. Mechaper Nama Mesim, and also benefits those who have passed away as a sort of secondary kapara. Elahacha, but over here, mihavu chayim. But over here, meaning by the karbanos that they brought during Ezra's time, right? How do you compare Egla Rufa to Ezra? Over there, everybody's around, right? Yotzei Mitzrayim get a sort of a bonus kapara on account of today's generation. But over here, by the story of Ezra, were they around? No. Previous generation had already passed away. Answers the Gemara, actually, let us correct that. Believe it or not, they were around. They actually lived through the experience as well. In Achanami, you're right. those who have sinned way back in the time of Tzidkiyahu were still alive today. So the whole issue is a non-issue. As the pasuk says, that had actually experienced the first bayis were around and they were crying, reminiscing the great glory of the first Beis Hamikdash. Apparently, they were all present. Asked the Gemara, perhaps only some members were there. Some were alive, a minority. Compared to the whole population. So if it's only a minority, again, it would be a problem because you're primarily trying to be mechaper and those who are not here. Says the Gemara, actually, most people that were there were from the Bayis Rishon. However, the pasuk says that the crying of those people drowned out, was so intense that it drowned out the calls and sounds of celebration. Apparently, it was a big crowd that were there still from way back. They couldn't discern the sounds of celebration because of the sound of the crying. The bottom line is, the majority of those who were present were actually still from Bayis Rishon. Hence, the Chatas was addressing live people, live owners, and that allays our concerns. Ask the Gemara, but hold it, one more question. Since when could he bring a carbon Chatas? When they committed idol worship. B'meizid, intentionally. B'mezidin havu. Typically, a carbon is only for a shogig. Answers the Gemara, you're right, this was an exceptional case. They got a special, Hayrua from Hashem. A carbon even for a mezid. And if you look at the numbers of how many karbanos they brought, you see it was something unusual. It was certainly an anomaly. I mean, you're talking about a huge amount of karbanos. Right? Elim, Tishim Meshisha, 96 rams, Kvasim, sheep, Shivim Shiva, 77. Keneged me. Why all these karbanes? What was the significance of all these numbers? Apparently it was a one-time event dictated by Hashem due to the unusual circumstances, and likewise, it allowed for a carbon even by a mezid, which is not your typical, procedure. Tanur. Okay, so back on the topic of the Chatos Shemesu Ba'aleh. Tanur, we have a brisa. Meis echad min hatzibur chayavin. Suppose the Bezdin issued a mistaken ruling regarding something severe. The public followed suit, which triggered the par helam davar shel tzibur, obligation. Now in between, before they got a chance to bring the carbon, a member of the public passed away. Meis echad min hatzibur chayavin. He's left to bring the carbon. But echad mi bezdin p'tur. If the one of the members of the bezdin hagadol who issued that ruling passed away in between, they're exempt. There's no longer a carbon. They can't bring a carbon anymore because they're missing one member, one of the owners of this potential carbon. Says the Mantana, who's speaking in this price? Whose opinion is being expressed? We had Rameir who says the Bezdin brings the carbon. Rabbi Yehuda says the public brings it. Rabbi Shimon says both. Mantan, Amar Rav Chizda, Amar Rav Zera, Amar Rav Yirmiyah, Amar Rav, Rabbi Meir. Apparently, this brisa is expressing Rav Meir's opinion. The Amar who says Bezdin meviim b'lei tzibur. Typically, the Bezdin brings the carbon, not the tzibur. Helkach, that explains the halacha. Meizachad not tzibur chayavin. So even if a member of the public had passed away in the interim, the Bezdin still brings a carbon. Why? because the Bezdin is still alive and well, and they're the owners of the carbon. So, death of one of the members of the public wouldn't affect their obligation, right? Because the Bezdin is still standing and intact, fully there. However, in the second case, where a member of Bezdin passed away, now we're stuck, Peturin. How come? So although it's not, exactly a personal private carbon, it's a joint carbon meant to be presented by all members of the Bezdin. It's sort of a partnership carbon. Nevertheless, if one of the partners passed away prior to bringing the carbon, right, so the carbon is lacking an owner, at least, an element of ownership. That's why you can't bring the carbon. So it's a chiddush that even though only part of the ownership passed away, that disables the carbon. Maskav Rav Yosef, says Rav Yosef, why are we forced to say that this brisa is just Rameir speaking? You know what? It can follow even Rab Shimon's shita as well, who says the Amar Bezdin imat tzibur, or Bezdin meviin imat tzibur, as it goes on the side. So Bezdin brings, the tzibur brings. Each one has his own carbon, and you can still explain the brisa perfectly. We start with Meis Echad ben Tzibur Chayavin. If a member of the public passed away, the carbon is still brought. The public's carbon is still brought. Why? This will be in line with what we said earlier. The ain't Tzibur Mason. There's no concept of Misa by Tzibur. Tzibur lives on. Right? Or you can say ain't Tzibur Mason means that the Rashi learns ain't din Misa but Tzibur. The halacha that the chatas, whose owner passed away, that chatas must be put to death. That doesn't apply by the tzibur. Okay, in any case, the point is the death of a member doesn't affect the carbon. So you carry on. Meisechad in Bezdin, however, one of the Bezdin members passes away, you can't bring the carbon. Why? Kedam rinan. The chatas is shutfin. Because this is a chatas shutfin. It's not tzibur, it's shutfin. It doesn't belong to the general public. It's an obligation upon, a group of people. It's a partnership, it's a shutfis. In this case, it doesn't have the same status as a tzibur, which relates to the general community, to the nation. It's just a shutfis, in which case, if one member dies, the chatas is now disabled. The chatas shutfini. Abai responds, you know why we can't be speaking according to Reb Shimon? Because according to Reb Shimon, just as a chatas Hatzibur has no misa, likewise the chatas has shutfin. We find elsewhere that Reb Shimon in fact holds the Amar who says chatas shutfin ain't a misa. There's no misa by chatas shutfin. Nisanyo, as we find in the brisa. Par v'sor shem kippurim she'ovdu. So you have the par and sar brought on Yom Kippur, and the par actually is meant to atone for the kohanim. And she'ovdu, they went missing. They're lost. And they quickly got a substitute. And they designated, a backup carbon. And then we discovered the old ones. So the first, a group, the first carbones, who are now discovered, are left, to die. They can't be brought. Okay? So that's the shita of Rabbi Yehuda. Rabbi Lezer Shimon Aimrim, they disagree. Yiru. Let them just, go out and pasture until they're blemished and, sell them off and use the money for karban. There's no reason to put them to death. Because it's like a chatas tzibur. It's not a private, a person's carbon. It's a communal carbon. Now, why is he calling it a chatas tzibur? It's not meant, to atone for the whole nation. It's just for the kohanim. Apparently, Reb Shimon regards a group of people, a shutfis, like tzibur. It's not one person alone. It's a group of people. Group of people has different status. It takes on a new identity, so to speak. It's not personal, it's communal, which is unaffected by a death of one member. So that explains why we couldn't attach Reb Shimon's name to the Brisa, which told us that if a member of the Bezdin passed away, we're in trouble. There would be no trouble at all, because it's a chatas hashutfin. Amalei Rav Yosef, the Rav responds, no, you can't prove from here that according to Reb Shimon, chatas hashutfin is safe, because this carbon is meant to address the kayhanim. Kayhanim is more than just a shutfas. It's like a whole entity. It's like a whole nation. It's like a whole community for itself. Kayhanim, you're making reference to the Kayhanim. Shani Kayhanim are very different than just a group of people like a Bezdin. Kayhanim, its own community. The Ikra Kol, in fact, the Torah calls them a Kohol, a community. D'chsiv ala Kayhanim, va'al kol amakol yichaper. Right? So the Karbonos Yom Kippur is meant to be mechaper on kol am hakol, the whole nation, and the pasuk sort of references the Kayhanim on the same level. A Kayhanim va'al kol amakol, to indicate that Kayhanim have a status of a call. So that was the Gemara, really? Alamiata. You're calling the Kahanim a call? If that's the case, Naisu par b'hoira. So, in a case of right, Hoiru Bezdin, and the Bezdin misled with their erroneous psak, and the community followed. So halacha is every shevet brings a carbon. And according to you, the Kahanim consider its own shevet, its own call. It would necessitate a separate carbon. And that can't be so. You know why? Because then we're running into issues with numbers. We spoke about 12. Remember, we spoke about 12 carbonis, one per shevet. Okay, let's assume what you're saying is true. Tafilu shvatim, you'll have more than 12 shvatim. Because Levi is a shevet, and then you have the Kehanim within shevet Levi. It's like another shevet. So according to Reb Shimon, you'll have 13 shvatim. And we had the mission the other day where Reb Shimon himself stops at 12. Let me explain to you why there's no par for the Kehanim. Shifte shel Levi lo ikru kohol. No, we're wrong. Not only are the Kehanim not called a kohol, even the entire Shevet Levi doesn't have the status of kohol. So you can't suggest that Kehanim are called a kohol, which would provide a new interpretation why Reb Shimon allows the lost and found carbon Yom Kippur to be processed. No. Kehanim are not a kohol. At most, they're just a shutfas, a group of people. The Chsiv, as the pasuk says, "Hinni mafrechav b'sicham setichel kal amim." Right? Hashem promises to Yaakov Avinu, "I'm going to give you kal amim. I'm going to give you." The pasuk continues, "I'm going to give them inheritance in Eretz Yisrael. They'll have territory in Eretz Yisrael." So you see this equation between being called a kohol and having territory in Eretz Yisrael, which teaches us kol sheish la'achuzah, only those who acquire territory in Eretz Yisrael, such as all the other shvatim except for Levi, right? Ikri kol, they're labeled kohol. B'chol she'en la'achuzah, however, Shevet Levi doesn't have his own, a lot of territory in Eretz Yisrael. Ikri kol, they're not labeled with the word kohol. So we have to discount for Shevet Levi. We don't have the term kohol applicable to Shevet Levi or the Kehanim within. Ask the Gemara, but now we're down a number. Because if you don't count Shevet Levi as a kohol, you only have 11 shvatim. It became chasrulu. You'd be shvatim, you're missing from the 12. Rabbaye, let's remember, Yosef split into two, Ephraim and Menashe, right? Ephraim and Menashe, Keruvin and Shimon Yuli, the pasuk clearly splits them into two. They're considered two, like Reuven and Shimon. Amar Rava, v'oksiv al shem acheim yikar ben achlasam. Lo nach lehukshu, v'loy ledavar acher. The pasuk clearly limits their status. They're called separate shvatim with respect to nachla. They get separate territories, but not regarding other things. For instance, regarding being considered a separate shevet for parallel davar tzibur, it's not the case. They're considered just one regarding parallel davar tzibur. So back to 11. Apparently, says Rava, we have to backtrack. certainly Shevet Levi is called a Kohal, which gets us up to number 12. But the Kehana within Shevet Levi, that's sort of a subset, they're not deserving of a title Kohal on their own. Rather, at most they're called a group of people, a Shutfis, and the Korban brought on Yom Kippur on their behalf, the par got lost and found, is merely a Chatas HaShutfim. And the fact that Rabbi Shimon says, no worries, there's no Misa by Chatas HaShutfim. What it does basically is it preempts us attributing Rabbi Shimon's name to the Brisa, the earlier Brisa that we started with. If one of the members of the Bezdin passes away, you can't bring the Korban, according to Rabbi Shimon, you would be able to. Because unless it's owned by a single individual who died, otherwise if it's a group, it's considered like a community to a certain extent and unaffected by the death of one member. Okay, now just picking up back on this topic regarding splitting Ephraim and Menashe. So it was only with respect to territory in Eretz Yisrael, really? V'loi, it didn't apply to other matters. The Golem is where they camped, right, around the Mishkan. So there are 4 sections, right, on all 4 sides of the Mishkan, and each side had its own flag, its own degel, and it was subset into three shvatim camped alongside that degel. When you find that Ephraim and Menashe camped separately, why? Answers the Gemara, the Chanoya, the encampment system in the Midbar, was patterned after it corresponded to the system of Nachla and Eretz Yisrael. And Rashi explains that Yaakov Avinu dictated the terms on both accounts. So just like they got separate territory, they camped separately. They lachlek covered the Golem. And the point was to give cover to the Golem, and Farshim explained that every degel, every side, was meant to have 3 Shavatim. And that necessitated a split, because otherwise you'll be short a degel, a shevet, and one degel will only have 2 shvatim, less than the other ones. As the Gemara, v'chalukim ben Nasim, we find another separation regarding Nasim. That when they inaugurated the Mishkan, all the leaders of the respective shvatim came and offered karbanos, Chanukas HaMizbeach, right? And we find that Ephraim had a nasi that brought a carbon. Likewise, Menashe's nasi brought a carbon. Why? Why do they get separate carbonis? Once again, that was for a special reason. Lachlik covered the Nasim to accord honor, to give respect to the Nasim, lest, one of them feel shortchanged. The Sanya, as we find in a Brisa, Shlomo, right? This is Shlomo HaMelech, when he completed the building of the first Beis HaMikdash. He celebrated for 7 straight days. Also, Zayim in Chanukah. Moshe. If Shlomo HaMelech suffice with 7, why did Moshe Rabbeinu stretch it to 12? Why did he make 12 days of Chanukah, of inauguration, celebrations, way back by the Mishkan and the Midbar? The answer is to accommodate all 12 Shavatim. Apparently, that was good enough reason, and likewise, good enough reason to give them separate karbanis. Okay, let's just conclude on our discussion, reading. So we learned that the Chatas HaTzibur is unaffected by Misa. What about the Chatas HaShutfin? So we had a question regarding Reb Shimon's opinion. We went back and forth and back and forth. According to Reb Shimon, do we regard a Chatas HaShutfin similar to Chatas HaTzibur and is unaffected by death or not? Tashma, let's conclude based on a Bryce. The Sanya, Reb Shimon Aimer, Chatas, Chamesh, Chatos, Mesos. In fact, we learn from Halachah Mishmi Sinai that in 5 instances, a Chatas, a Korban Chatas, is put to death. It's it, you can't process it properly. It's Mesos. What are the 5? Number 1, Vlad Chatas. A Chatas who gave birth, so an offspring of a Korban Chatas. Utmuras Chatas. You have a Chatas, which was a Tmura. So basically you had a Korban Chatas and you said, okay, I want the Kedusha of this Chatas to be transferred or stretched and extended into another Korban. So that second Korban is called Tmuras Chatas. You can't bring it as a Korban. Rather, it goes Lemisa. Thirdly, V'chatas Shemes Ba'alea, a Chatas whose owner passed away. 4, V'chatas Shemes Ba'alea, a Chatas whose owner already took a different carbon instead. V'chatas shavar shnasa, or a chatas who passed its first year, past the year old. So it's a total of 5. Now, v'yata yochaloymar v'lad chatas b'tzibur. You can't apply the concept of vlad chatas by a tzibur. You know why? She'ain tzibur rafish in a keva. A chatas of a tzibur is never going to be a female. There's no concept of offspring. So that instance, that variation, is not applicable to a tzibur. Likewise, tmura is also not applicable. V'yata yochaloymar tmura is chatas b'tzibur. Because by tzibur, there's no tmura. She'ain tmura b'tzibur, they can't do tmura. Third thing, which is inapplicable, by a tzibur, v'yata yochaloymar chatas shmeisa ba'ale b'tzibur. Likewise, the one that the owner died, again, doesn't apply by tzibur, as we said over and over again, because she'ein tzibur meisa. What about the final 2, which technically can apply by a tzibur? The one that the fellow took a different carbon instead, or the one that is too old, right? That could work by a tzibur, she'en schapar ba'aleh, or v'shavar shnasa. Lo shamanu. So what's the status on those? If it belongs to the tzibur, and this indeed happens, it got too old, what's the status of the carbon? Yochal Yamusa, perhaps, they're put to death. What's inapplicable is inapplicable, but what's applicable, you proceed and you apply the same process as if it would be a chatos yachid. The answer is no, says Reb Shimon. It's one package. Amras, the answer is Yilmoid Sasam. We can clarify the status of the unknowns, the 2 unknowns, Mina Mafurish, from the 3 that are known, as follows. Mamutzinu, just like we find, Bivlat Chatas, Utmuras Chatas, V'chatas Shemesu Ba'aleh, just like the first 3 examples are limited to only one belonging to a Yachid, B'Yachid, Devarim Amurim, but it doesn't apply to a Tzibur, as we discussed, but Tzibur, likewise, the remaining 2, Shenes Chaper Ba'aleh, V'shavar Shnasa, even though theoretically it can apply to a tzibur, no. B'yachad dvarim amurim, but the tzibur, the din of misa only applies if it belongs to a yachad, but not to a tzibur. Ask the Gemara, v'chidon efsha meshi efsha, how could he learn one from the other? The last 2, well, it's efsha. Theoretically, it could happen by a tzibur. How could you go and learn from those that are not applicable to a tzibur? And due to circumstance, that's not going to happen. Mishayi efsha. I mean, you could compare apples to apples, but here you're comparing apples to oranges. Just because those don't work by a tzibur, but these that could work by a tzibur should. The answer is Reb Shimon b'chad makim gomer. Shimon had a tradition, a Kabbalah, that it was one package, all or nothing. That was how the Halach Mishmisina was given over. It was stated as a package. Either all 5 work or none. And since 3 of them don't work by a tzibur, circumstantially, so the whole concept of misa doesn't apply to a tzibur. So that concludes our discussion. We have clarity that indeed, according to Reb Shimon, unless all 5 are applicable, none are applicable, and therefore, by shutfas as well, since a chatas of a shutfas, like a par of bezdin, can only come as a zachar, as a male. There's no vlad. Likewise, a shutfas can't do tmura. So if some are not applicable, all are not applicable. And there's no concept of chatas lamisa by a shutfas. So bottom line is, chatas hayachid has 5 instances where the chatas is put to death. But according to Reb Shimon, by the tzibur, likewise by the shutfas, since not all are applicable, none are. Continues the mission. Up until now we spoke about the public being misled by the bezdin to commit a sin. Now we shift to something similar. It's a different variation of this idea, but it pertains to the Kohen Mashiach, the Kohen that was anointed, the Kohen Gadol, the great leader, who's also typically a great Talmud Chacham. So he ruled for himself. He paskined that the chaylev is permitted. And of course it was a mistake, shogeg. He didn't mean to do so. He misunderstood something. Vasa shogeg, and he carried out his ruling with shogeg as well. He permitted it and he did it. So just like if the public was misled by the bezdin, they bring a par, Likewise, the Kohen Mashiach, due to his lofty status as a leader of Klal Yisrael, he follows the same pattern. If his mistake came about by a ruling, in this case his own ruling, his personal ruling, he brings a par, maybe a par. However, that's only when the Horayos was b'shoigig and the act was b'shoigig. But if you're lacking any of those elements, for instance, shoigig, he ruled b'shoigig, vasa mezid, but he carried it out knowing that it was wrong. Mezid, he ruled b'mezid, vasa shoigig, and he carried it out forgetting that it was us. In these cases, pater doesn't bring a par. Why? Because, again, it follows a similar pattern to the par of the tzibur. Shayras, Kohen Mashiach la'atzmi, Kairas, bezin tzibur, because the ruling, the psak, the verdict that the Kohen Mashiach applies personally has the same status, in a way, as the hira of the bezin, which misled the tzibur. And it requires a hira b'shogig and an act b'shogig. Shogig was a shogig maybe par pshita. Ask the Gemara, if he ruled b'shogig and he did b'shogig, of course he brings a par. I mean, that's a shogig all through. So what's the chiddush here? Pshita, Amar Abaye. My skin, the chiddush is like this. We're speaking, initially he made a psak. He ruled to permit something. Then a week later, when he was actually going to carry out the ruling and implement it and eat the whatever, he recalled that in fact he permitted it for himself. But he didn't recall, he forgot the rationale behind, the basis for the psak. And when he actually implemented his ruling and he ate the chalev, Amar, he says like this, I don't recall the specifics, but I'm relying on, my earlier judgment. Amar, I'm doing it based on my original psak. And he proceeded. You would think that perhaps there's an element of negligence here because he failed to, reconsider, reanalyze the story. Perhaps you can say, if perhaps he would have, recalled the reason, analyzed it further, perhaps he would have retracted. And the fact that he didn't bother analyzing it left him in the dark and brought him to do what he did. Perhaps there's an element of mezid, k'mezid dami. And he wouldn't have to bring the par. It wouldn't justify. Kamashman, the point is no. The fact is, he had a right to rely on his earlier judgment. He doesn't have to rethink and reanalyze. If he judged and he ruled, and now he did, he brings a par. And it's considered a shoigig all throughout. Okay, let's briefly recap here. We had the beginning, the brisa with Levium, where the chatos was not consumed by the Kohanim. It was a special korban, Horayos, a special pasuk for that. Likewise, we have the korbanos brought when they returned from Gullus, and this was meant to atone for Avodah Zarah. We went back and forth on that. How did it work? There's only misabit sibur, and then we said actually they were alive. In any case, it was mezid that required a special, Horayos, which also explained a large number of korbanos. And the conclusion was that if the chatas atzibur had a member die, it's not affected by his death. Only a chatas hayachad has that issue. And regarding Reb Shimon, we had a chiddush that just like by a chatas tzibur, there is no chatas hamesa because it's all or nothing, and some of them certainly are not applicable by a tzibur, like the vlad and the tmura. Likewise, all five are not applicable, and likewise by the chatas hashutfin as well. Kohen Mashiach has similar status to the tzibur, and if he's hoira b'shogig and also b'shogig, he brings a par to be mechaper on his shkaka. All the best to you and atzlach.